Hello, Cam followers. It's very nice to be back. It's exciting times because you are going to learn about something that is so new, You're going to fry your brain because what we're going to talk about tonight is a step in a direction that all of us really, really want. Throughout the last however many years we've been doing Cam, we've been talking about how can we better identify, better monitor pain so that we can use this amazing toolbox of interventions that we have to best effect, so our dogs can be as comfortable as possible for as long as possible. And you know our hashtag, your dog more years. So I'm really excited because it's been on the cards for about a year now. I spoke to Deb Dullen last year about doing a live, and I have finally pinned her down, and she's going to be talking about a new tool that is very new and it's ridiculously exciting. So, but first of all, I do need to say thank you to our sponsors. Whoever watches Cam knows that this year our main sponsor is Big Barker Beds from the US. We're extraordinarily proud to be working with them. We love their ethics. We love the fact that they wanted to actually prove that their marketing campaign had legs. In that, if you turn around and say that your bed is really good for dogs that suffer arthritis or suffer from pain, or you offer improved mobility as a consequence of using that bed, put your money where the mouth is. Actually start proving it, and they did. So this bed has been through a pilot study with the University of Pennsylvania, and they, at great expense, have been able to say, yes, we do see less joint stiffness. We have dogs that have less discomfort having utilized this bed for 28 days. Woohoo! This is what we like at Cam. We like evidence. So thank you so much, Big Barker. We're really, really, really honored that you are supporting us in 2022. Right, now let's get over to the good stuff. Please tell us a bit about yourself so everybody that's listening can understand how you fell into this incredible
Yeah, so I did really fall into it. This is something that we don't talk about that often, but it was a train ride. And quite frankly, I was standing in line, which I don't usually stand in line to get on a train from Philadelphia to New York City. And I started speaking with the man next to me. And we got on the train. We decided to have a beer and sit in the restaurant car and chat. And the next thing you know, we were talking about grandkids and life. And then we started talking about the fact that I worked in healthcare for my entire career. And then the next thing I know, we became business partners. Yeah. So I really did fall into this. I was taking a train ride to go see a photography show in New York City.
Amazing.
Yeah. So go figure. It plays and pays to be nice to everyone you meet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So tell us about your healthcare kind of like profession. How did this evolve?
Yeah. So I actually predominantly I'm a little bit of a nerd, I guess, in that I'm a researcher and I've worked in business for a while. But I started out in diabetes, moved into proteomics and genomics, so the study of proteins and genetics, back in the 90s. Worked with PCR, which was a big buzzword in the past couple of years. First company to actually bring that to market. Worked on monoclonal antibodies, and then I moved into orthopedics. And I know, actually, just thinking about Cam, orthopedics is hugely correlative. I worked on the human side, but ultimately a trauma and injury, an injury to soft tissue leads to osteoarthritis.
Exactly.
And so I ended up working with Synthase. It's an orthopedic company for 10 years after, doing bouts of research. And then I ended up leaving and starting this company. PainTrace is a product that's from a company named BioTraceIT. And we were formed back in 2014 and got more into the neuro side of research, and that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. It's a lot of hardware, a lot of software, a lot of work. But I guess 8 years later, we have something that we think is valuable, that we can offer. Yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll give people a little tantalizing overview of what we're going to get to. But because much of our audience are dog carers, they're the owners themselves, we're actually going to step back and talk about pain and the consequences of pain and the different types of pain and the importance of controlling pain, so people can really get into context why this tool is incredible. But basically, guys, by the end of this 45-minute live, we're going to introduce you to a monitoring device that we hope is going to start featuring in veterinary practices in and around the globe. And it's going to be able to be used during surgeries, during examinations. It can be used remotely. So there's going to be like a telehealth component to it, where if you're unsure whether that stoic dog was actually saying that hurt, you can look at an instrument that says, yeah, that did hurt, but they kept a straight face. If you were doing surgery and your dog was anesthetized and you're doing something, you're thinking, have we got a good enough pain control here? You're going to be able to track it. And this is nuts, because for us, it's already it is difficult when, say, you're a practitioner and you're examining a dog and you get that slight little indication that they said that's sore, but the owner may not have seen it, or they haven't seen that movement or that posture or that white of the eye or just a little flick, to be able to then look at a device and go, I just saw them do this. Well, actually, let's look at the PainTrace because it correlates, So when they turned around and just did little whites of the eye, a little bit of hesitation, that really is suggestive of pain. And these two, so now we've got something that we can carry on using. Your dog does talk to you. Wow, that's going to be so cool. So that's what we're going to get to. But I think, first of all, shall we just kind of talk to people about pain, acute pain, chronic pain, and go for it, lady?
Oh, I get to lead? Okay. Well, I think, you and I talked about this earlier, and there's a couple different types of pain, right? And I think acute pain, as you're suggesting, is easier to visualize. Dogs will react more to an area that's an acute response to a flexion or extension of a joint. But chronic pain is something that, whether we look at humans that self-report or, if we're looking at the veterinary, it's a little bit more difficult to detect. Even humans have difficulty self-reporting chronic pain. They don't really have a point of reference. So you may start out with something being a 6, but over time it becomes a 3 or 2 from your perceptions point of view. But it doesn't mean that the physiological trauma or stress is going away. And I mentioned to you, in kind of our preparation is working with Johns Hopkins and Glenn Treisman, who ran the inpatient pain management program there. And he said one of the most difficult parts about chronic pain is helping be able to identify it over time. And people are maybe downregulating the use of an opioid, increasing physical activity, increasing rehab and other forms of modalities of treatment. But they feel worse, or they don't believe they're getting better. And the ability to have a scale, like when you lose weight, to be able to weigh yourself or see those tight jeans and go, oh, hey, these are all things that we look at and we go.
That's fascinating, because So I follow a lot of other organizations, but more in the healthcare setting. So the Creaky Joints, Arthritis Foundation, there's so many newsletters I get. And generally in these newsletters, it's very much from a client's emotive life perspective. So these newsletters are there to empower people that they may live in pain, but you can still go up and go for a walk, and we're all ears. We know some days it's hard graft and some days it gets you down. There's a big emotive component to having chronic pain. There's a really big connection with depression, etc. And sometimes you could imagine that somebody would perceive that they're still suffering a huge amount of chronic pain, nociceptive stimulus from a problem, but actually they're not, but it's still here, they're still experiencing it. So if you were able to show them a device saying, well, I know that you feel that your joints are really giving you a lot of gripe at the moment and you think it's not improving, but that new intervention we started a month ago, well, look what your trace is doing. Your trace, that will then flick them and go, oh, this is good. You're going to a positive mindset. A positive mindset is better for pain control, perception, etc., etc. Wow.
And then if you think about your dogs, so here's a great example. We were working with a veterinarian and they chose to use Galliprant for, in particular, elbow pain that they had identified. And the pet parent said, my dog's still limping. This was after several weeks of Galliprant. And so they brought the dog back in and they PainTraced the dog. And it was evident that it was the left shoulder. It was hands down. You could see it upon walking that there was discomfort. And then when they did the actual exam, it was the left shoulder that was really causing the pain. But the coolest part was what the veterinarian said. She said, this is so powerful because the pet owner did not want to have the dog sedated and go through multiple x-rays to figure out where the pain was.
Yeah.
So they wanted to do an MRI and just look at everything all at once. And that's economically cannot be something that everybody chooses. And the veterinarian turned to me and she goes, now I know exactly what to say. We don't need to do the MRI. We know it's the left shoulder. Here's what we're going to do. But I think the point is that you may not be getting better too. One treatment is not for everybody. One treatment is not for all parts of the body. One, it depends, right?
Yeah. I'm sorry. It's so of the moment. I just went to see my physio and we were talking about his dog, and he recently started the dog on a non-steroidal and he's seen really good improvement. And I think he parked the idea. He was like, the dog was now on treatment. That's where we're at. And that's, I'll see you again in 3 months. I said, well, what if your dog isn't as good as it could be? And you can see him just go, what? I was like, yeah, his pain relief isn't like a light switch. Yeah. What happens if your dog's a bit better, but your dog's going, dude, I could be so much better.
Right.
You're giving me
I'm on one right now. Not a -5. It's true.
Yeah. Don't hold back on it. Keep coming. And that's kind of quite exciting because for a vet, when you integrate something else into a treatment plan, there's so many worries. There's so many. So say I've got your dog on a non-steroidal and I'm sitting there going, I think we can do more. I'd like to introduce laser, acupuncture, an adjunct. I want to encourage you to do hydrotherapy. I'm sitting here going, pros, cons, pros, cons, pros, cons. So anybody watching this, any clients out there, your vet lives in stress of what are the benefits, what are the risks, what if I do nothing? Zoe Belshaw does the lovely brand, benefits, risks, alternatives, what if I do nothing? That's how her brain works in every consult. Yeah. And I do that as well. I'm sitting there going, oh God, they're going to be angry if they spend more money, if it doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. What if it causes diarrhea? What if they're more sedated? But to be able to have that tool and go, look, we're not there yet. Now let's add.
Right.
And then it's their confidence.
Yeah. If there's no change when you add, you go, okay, this isn't working. This is not the answer. It makes me think of, and then to your point, you fix something, but maybe it's not 100%, but the dog can't tell you. And I know you studied, I think it was the Gallon myotherapy, right? And it made me think of a friend of mine. It was the first time I have been made aware of myofascial triggers and treatments. And she tore her ACL in a exercise class, of course. And she went in, she had surgery. And after the fact, she wasn't back to her normal self. She was having pain because she had adjusted her gait to take the weight off of the injured leg. And now she was having all of the myofascial, changes that happen with the shifting of, everything that's interconnected, right?
Yeah.
And she went and they were able to work on, her alignment. And now she's able to, have a normal alignment. She walks normally. She wasn't at risk of further degeneration of a knee or a hip or even lumbar spine, which is all associated. And yeah, so it's again, are you good enough or are you good?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's exactly. I know, because I'm just thinking, I did this really lovely live with Louise Clark, who is one of my heroes. I think she's just incredible. And even as a specialist, you're looking for marginal gains. You're looking. She uses an analogy of a cyclist that wears the lycra, the shoes, the helmet. All of these things to streamline the bike to get a marginal gain with speed, etc. And she's like, sometimes that's how you feel you're playing with pain management, but then the other part of your head is that killer phrase of what is sometimes better the enemy. I'm trying to get a little bit more, but actually you destabilize the plan by changing things. The enemy of good is better, in that sort of situation. And it's really hard. When I talk to other vets and they're like, are you still obsessed with arthritis? I'm like, it's the biggest quiz. It's the hardest thing to work out whether you are at the sweet spot, whether you're getting it right. And I think it's only people that play with chronic pain really get that. What can I tweak to make it a little bit better? But okay.
Yep, totally.
We've got this really good plan of action, and I'm just trying to see where we're going to get to. Shall we actually talk about how the device works? Because then we can talk about peripheral sensitization, central sensitization, blah, 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 thereafter. But talk about what you're actually detecting.
Sure. Yeah. I'll just talk about it. I think that's easier. And yeah. So the system, what's happened over the years, we figured out that you can actually detect on the skin what is happening in the brain. And what's interesting is that they've started to do more and more studies about, for instance, functional magnetic resonance imaging. So what parts of the brain are active and comparing those to what do we see on the skin. And in particular, we're interested in the amygdala, which gives a very big signal on the skin. And so when you have pain, let's just say that for purposes of ease, it's my wrist or my distal radius, and that's my peripheral nervous system. It sends that message up to my central nervous system. That goes to your thalamus. It's the director in the brain. And if it's something like a hot stove, like we're talking about, like an acute pain, that's something that you're going to have a very fast and prompt reaction to. Then that thalamus sends that message, which is the afferent. It comes up and then it goes straight back down. So it's a really fast, high frequency reaction. But if it's something that is chronic or something that you have some sort of memory to, you're anticipating, then that signaling doesn't go straight back down anymore, the afferent to efferent. Instead, it goes to the cortex. And the cortex actually is your perception. Where is it? What is it? Has this happened before? And it talks to the amygdala on the opposite side. And they go back and forth and they have a conversation and they say, yeah, it's pain. And they send that message back down again. But we can see it on the skin. So we have this balancing act between what goes up and what goes down. And that allows us to make an individual pain signal for everybody. It's your own personal perception.
That's incredible. So okay, because that leads me into a question that I had, is that we know that people's perception of pain is what creates suffering, so up until that is a physiological response to try and protect us from harm or potential harm, But as you say, our cognitive assessment, our experiences before, how we feel at the moment, really affects the perception of that pain. And therefore, that creates our consideration of suffering. And I was really trying to work out how this physiological signal could actually demonstrate that. And is that?
Yeah, so here's I guess a good example. So one of the noxious stimuli that's utilized in research is a cold pressor test. Taking your hand or an appendage and putting it into a 0 degrees Celsius water bath for a minute and a half. And that then elicits a pain response or a nociceptive response, and people self-report. So that has been a gold standard. A lot of scales have been based on that or thermal, thermal stimuli. The interesting thing about it is when people are self-reporting, humans are self-reporting, and we're also simultaneously using PainTrace, there's a difference in how people perceive cold. And some people with the exact same stimulus might say, that's a 3. And other people might have an 8 reaction to the exact same stimulus. The PainTrace, we measure amplitudes of change. So the person that said it was a 3, the change is a 3. The person that said it was an 8, the change is an 8. So it's their individual response to the exact same stimulus. And
it really is the efferent, because I was trying to get my head around it. Guys, I'm not a scientist, so I've spoken to Deb before, going, I don't understand. Like, you're gonna have to come here and spend a month with me to try and get your head around it. I was like, oh my god. So we're actually talking about the efferent. So after the noxious stimuli has been turned into a nociceptive signal, the brain has done what it's going to do with it, and this is what's coming out, the response, which I use this analogy when I do lectures. I'm like, right, so guys, you're on your way to university and your car breaks down and it's raining and you're late, and as you walk in, you stub your toe. And that's, how do you feel? Right. Now do the same situation, but you're driving to uni, your car doesn't break down, it's not raining, you pop into the newsagents to get a Red Bull, you buy a lottery ticket, you won £10,000, and you walk in and you stub your toe. How different is that pain experience going to be? Are you saying that this is able to do that?
With all the studies that have been conducted so far, the answer appears to be yes.
Insane.
Students,
please step forward. We need to practice.
Research, but we match what people say, and everybody's different, right? Everybody's different, and your experience is going to be unique to you. There's a neuroscientist, I forget his name, but he does a great talk about walking through the Australian bush. But a twig touches him and he freaks out. He thinks it's a brown snake. He's in awful pain, right? And then, flash forward, he has an
he's wearing a sarong, isn't he? And everybody goes, well, don't really sarong do.
Right. Actually, the first time it actually is the snake. The second time, and he, rushes to the hospital, survives the brown snake bite. The second time, it's actually a twig that brushes his leg. But he has the reaction similar to the brown snake bite because that's what's in his memory. That's how your pain responses work. It is a combination. If you look at the Institute of Medicine's 2011 pain report, they describe pain as a biopsychosocial phenomenon. It is all three. Culturally, there are differences between how people self-report pain. Quite frankly, it can be harmful. For instance, certain cultures don't report pain as often because it's not something that's culturally acceptable. So if you don't say you have pain, then somebody can't treat you, right? But it's very similar to our dogs, right? Or even our cats. If you can't say you have pain, then somebody can't treat you. And it makes me think of that video that you shared with us and we shared as well. But it's the man that is not saying anything, and he goes to the doctor's office and nobody can figure out what's wrong with him, and he can't say anything or he isn't saying anything. And then all of a sudden, the lady within the practice goes, "Are you in pain? You're in pain." And now this opens up a whole bright new opportunity, right, to do something about it. And it's funny because, you know, I guess I'm slightly introverted, so I'm a slight preparer, right? That's what introverts do.
Yes.
We prepare.
Yes.
So
Be prepared.
I was reading yours on Cam, and then I was looking at Mary Ellen Goldberg had recently posted, these different parts for osteoarthritis in canines. And, it's funny, she wrote part 1 of this part article will look at the causes of osteoarthritis, but she said detection by owners and veterinary professionals. That's the key part of part 1. And I went, that's so nice to be able to give this, right?
Mm-hmm.
To bring
No,
this.
absolutely. I did a talk for PACT. Was it last? I think it was last night. And a lady asked me a question. How do I know when my dog's got it? When am I supposed to be alert to it? And as you say, I was like, well, it's most commonly caused by developmental joint disease. This means that your dog might have actually been dealing with it to some degree from a very young age. Correct. So it's not a case of right now your dog's 8. That's when we start looking. It really, really could be from 6 months old. And you could see her brain just going, how do we ever fight a disease like that? And it has to be by giving owners the tools and veterinary professionals, canine professionals, to be aware, question, and be able to detect, and be that via visual analytical skills, palpational skills, clinical metrology instrument skills, PainTrace skills. So tell people how it works, because everybody's going to be going, right, okay, so this is a piece of
so what is this thing?
It's going to be massive.
I'll share my screen because I think a picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yeah.
And let's see, share screen, and then everybody can look at all of the amazing number of tabs I have open. All right. So here's what I'll do. I'm actually just going to, let's see if this video will
Let me put it on.
Yeah. And can you see my screen?
I can see your screen. You still are live, so we can still see you. So don't suddenly start,
picking my nose.
Picking your nose.
Yeah. And I might just find like, okay, yeah, this will be slow. And that's when I'll abort quickly and go to YouTube. Yeah, that's what's going to happen. But so we'll get out of that. Oh, there we go. Perfect.
Our furry friends are family. More than ever, we are concerned for their well-being. We want and need to know how they feel. A new solution, PainTrace, works together with veterinarians to locate and monitor pain. Much like our weight or blood pressure, our pain can change with our health or affect our health. Seeing pain provides new opportunities to support care. With PainTrace, we use an objective biosignal from the nervous system that measures the magnitude and duration of both acute and chronic pain. The more negative the number, the more pain we see. Skin-mounted sensors acquire real-time PainTrace levels. Cloud-based software instantly displays the PainTrace, whether at home or in clinic. Speech recognition provides real-time notation of treatment, examination, and activities. Safe, simple. Prep to PainTrace in 5 minutes. Chart location and degree of pain. Monitor the.
So I'm just going to move on from that and just give you guys just a brief tutorial.
Should I put the screen back up? Are you happy for the screen to go back up there? There you go.
It's okay to keep the screen for a sec, and then I'll move off of it in one moment. Okay. Can you still see this slide?
I can see the slide, yeah.
Okay. So just so everybody listening would have an idea of what a PainTrace might show them, is it's a live feed, but we look at baselines and we look at these acute peaks, as I mentioned. With human self-report, we know a smaller peak is maybe a 1 to 3, or a larger peak is moderate pain, or a red peak, which is even larger still, is severe pain. But for instance, if you're looking at shoulder arthritis in this example, you can see this large peak, and this is when the veterinarian is extending the right shoulder. But flexion of the right shoulder is fine. And the elbow's okay. And the carpal or wrist is okay. And there's a little bit of a reaction here on the left shoulder flexion. But ultimately, we know that this right shoulder is the main component where the pain is. And the veterinarian, this is what they describe, but there was lameness in a limb for years. The dog showed absolutely zero signs of pain, no flinching or whites of the eye, as you said, Hannah. But the PainTrace showed that pain. And then they went on and used X-ray. They found bilateral shoulder arthritis and some biceps tendonitis. And they went on and did some stem cell therapy. So, yeah, so I just wanted to show that. We can show a lot more, but I don't want to belabor that. So I can stop sharing my screen.
Okay, I'll move that. Now that's you know, it's so interesting, because not only is the conversation with the owner, but the owner with the vet. So there'll be situations where an owner will come to us, or a behaviourist might send us a dog and say, is this underlying behaviour linked to potential pain? Because we know that there is a really strong correlation now of the seen by Professor Mill's paper. And there's definitely for many behaviourists out there, the concern that they're sending their client's dog to see a veterinarian who may not pick up on subtle signs of pain. And therefore that dog will go back going, no, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And then the dog will be put into a training plan, and they might not get the results they want, the speed of the results, the complete response to the intervention. And there's always in the back of the behaviourist head, I still think there's pain. This is so exciting. I tell you who I have to introduce you to, Sarah Fisher.
Wait,
with her free work. I'll introduce you to Sarah Fisher.
Okay,
she runs something called Animal-Centered Education, and she uses something called free work, where she sets up a controlled environment where there are different obstacles, different things to look at, to step over, to be interested in. And you look at movement and body posture and how they turn, and do they like things high up? Do they like things low down? Do they choose to step around things rather than over? And by looking and looking and looking, you start seeing capability, gait, behavior changes that might go, that's going to be
there's
pain.
something going on there. Yeah. We do that with horses, but we do it with PainTrace, right? So for instance, a common thing is turn left, either when we're walking or lunging, and then switch it and move right. You will actually see larger peaks on the side that is affected, that's painful. Backing up, right? Usually associated with lumbar spine in horses. And you can totally see it. It's really kind of amazing.
It is, because I can remember only about 5-10 years ago when I really was at the beginning of CAM. And I was chatting to a really cool friend of mine. He's a dermatologist. And he was like, wouldn't it be great if we could have a biomarker for pain? We've got these blood values that we look at for liver disease, kidney disease. We've got, things that we look at urine samples about. And it's just the big one, pain. What can we measure? And I know that people have looked at things that are in like the urine and stuff. I know Duncan Lascelles is always looking for that biomarker that's going to correlate nicely with pain. But that's never going to be real-time data. This is real-time data.
Right. You are literally watching it. Right. So I think that becomes kind of the key factor, right? For instance, so we work in larger animals as well. We work with a company named CMEX, which has breeding bulls, and they use PainTrace for animal welfare. They create individualized protocols for care. It's no different than doing it for any different individual, but they do it for these bulls. And so they're breeding bulls. If you see pain peaks when they are mounting, it's the hind limbs. And then if they're dismounting, you see pain peaks. It's all forelimb. You can completely tell the difference between whether it's hind or fore just by watching that. That's it. And they literally have been able to discern, okay, this bull has pain when he turns left. So, we need to deal with it. They've used chiropractic, they've used myofascial hoof trimming, different things that they are looking for to see what ensures these bulls are comfortable and, and healthy. But it's completely individual, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, okay, next question. Can it be used easily in animals that are maybe performing? So, is it a device that they can wear whilst walking, running, sleeping, doing everything? So that opens up that range. So it's a bit like a Holter monitor for like an ECG thing.
Yeah, exactly. The video that we showed, those dogs were wearing PainTraces. They had halters on, and so they were running and moving and being active. We do use a particular adhesive to make sure that everything's good, and but yeah, dogs wear the system for 3 days and continuous monitoring, so they can go out, they can do activities, we can watch it. We've done rehab where we've watched dogs go up and down ramps, do different activities, walking, running, walking, trotting, all sorts of things. It just depends on what the goal is. Yeah.
Perfect. You could actually
on the track, so that's active. A horse
you
on
could
the
actually say, so you've got an agility dog that started to decide he doesn't want to weave.
Right.
Could you potentially use that at the same time to
Absolutely. And then you might be able to see, okay, they don't seem to be uncomfortable when weaving to the left, but definitely to the right, we're repeatedly seeing something happening.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
You would definitely be able to see that because they'd be putting all their weight on one side, and that's when you would see, the weight bearing change.
Yeah. Okay. So next question. You talked about a special adhesive and stuff. Is it uncomfortable to wear?
It doesn't seem to be. We're not seeing any PainTrace changes, so that would be an indicator.
That'd be awful every time you put the device on.
Yeah, exactly. All of a sudden, everything just gets worse. No, that does not happen. And honestly, we've seen dogs just be happy with it. I actually just took a video of a dog that was being PainTraced, and she just rolls over, and she's got that big smile on her face, and she's actively being PainTraced. So it's a great video, but she's so happy. Yeah. No.
And next, there's loads of questions. These are all very practical.
Absolutely,
questions.
I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
So the device, if somebody a practice was to invest in this, you can swap and change it for different animals. So you can, a bit like a Holter monitor. So I've just had one of my cats turn up on my back. Can you please do that?
I was waiting for the dog, and then you'd see like my vest going like this if a tail gets under there. Yeah.
No, this kitten has got into the habit of jumping from this chair onto my back and then back again, and I'm like,
hello.
Yeah. So a practice can invest in it, and they can use it on different clients. They can, as you say, let the animal go home with it, so it can be like a Holter monitor. You don't have to keep recalibrating it for different animals. It's not all technically really difficult.
No, not at all. The software, all you do is just put the species into the software, and that allows it automatically changes everything to be appropriate for equine, bovine, canine, feline, human. We're not approved for human, but for research only for people. But yeah, and then we've recently even worked with swine. So yeah, all of that it's very seamless, actually. That's the one thing that somebody said out of one of the academic groups that we work with, and he goes, this is so easy to use and actually really easy to understand. And I went, thank you.
Yeah.
Hear that.
Well, my next practical question as well is I can totally see myself having it next to me and examining a dog. I could see myself doing surgery and having that going, wait, come on, guys, I know the dog's anesthetized, but we're seeing a trace go up. Let's think about doing maybe a ketamine CRI. Let's do something because we're not on top of the nociceptive pain that's being generated. I could see myself using it post-operatively. What I struggle is a very female practical thing of if an animal went home with it, that's a lot of data to get through. So how does that work in that? it's going to be rare that I'm going to sit down for 4 hours looking.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I wouldn't do that either. We color code. I think that's a big help. And that's what people have given us feedback on. We don't look at absolutely everything, and not everything is color coded. The yellow is mild, the orange is moderate, the red is severe. And so if you just look at the colors, you're fine.
Right. So
Right.
can you just kind of whiz through, as you say, if you've got 8 hours of data, it's very easy to navigate through.
Yeah. And so, for instance, let's just say that there was an annotation, right? There was somebody that was saying, this is when they went up the stairs or when they came down the stairs, right? And you see red, you're automatically going to the red or the orange, and then you're looking at what was happening then. And then, right. And they, for instance, I just did some monitoring on our dog. She's got a tumor and she had some scoping done. So I thought, what the heck, let's just make sure she's comfortable. I put some notes on, but I had it in the kitchen. I was cooking dinner, and it was a bit like a baby monitor, quite frankly. She was in the other room sleeping and or resting because she was a bit dysphoric. So she wasn't quite, sleeping. And I just watched. And if I saw something happen, I kind of peeked my head around the corner. But it was like a baby monitor. I was literally cooking dinner and watching it.
Okay, now my next kind of question, stimulated by you talking about stairs. Is there any other signal that we could be detecting? That if you've got a dog that actually had been in pain, had done the stairs, had perceived pain in a previous experience, but we're now 3 months later and still doesn't want to do the stairs because they perceive it will be painful, are you getting a trace that really relates to pain, or are you getting a trace of perception of pain?
Right. So what we see is if there is what I call an anticipatory response, because we see it. For instance, like we're trying to get a horse to walk, for example. It's just what I have in my head. But any individual we're trying to get to walk, but they are afraid of walking because they know that that's painful.
Yeah.
You get a positive spike before you get the painful negative peak, right? Because in our world, pain is negative. Yeah. And that positive spike is more that affective, the emotional, like I have anxiety about walking because that's usually creates a lot of pain. And that anticipatory is a positive peak before the negative. But if you didn't see a negative come after that and you just got a bunch of anticipatory responses, then you'd start to wonder, okay, you're not walking, but I'm seeing a lot of these positive peaks. You're just anticipating something's wrong, but I'm not actually seeing a pain response.
Okay. This is getting really okay.
Now we're into PainTrace, mid-level,
Yeah.
But, yeah. Because it gives you that level of information. You just have to understand what you're looking at to know that information.
Yeah, definitely. So there's obviously a huge amount of CPD that comes with integrating this into practice. So I've had a couple of people already approach me today saying, so where can I watch this? We're really interested. So for any people that are in a veterinary practice, you do provide a huge amount of education alongside the device. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So the team, we have an internal team, and they're our tech team. Yeah. We obviously, it's the minute that you receive the device, you automatically receive an email to log into the app. And then you've got everything you need. It's all in a bundle and you're ready to go once you log in and create your username and password. You can start, immediately. And then you're also prompted for set up a training with us because we want to have you educated as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And then you're given emails with different tips and tricks, or additionally invites, right? Would you like to chat with us about some of your traces? Or we can just send you an email and give you our review of your trace for you. So it's not the learning curve is not steep. It's actually really easy, but we make sure that you're really well supported. So you're there, you're good. If at any time we've had people lose their password, or not have the password, 30 minutes before the client's supposed to be coming in, and the team's responded, immediately, or somebody just wants some help. The team's really good about it.
You've got a good 24-hour support sort of situation.
Yeah.
Okay, now on to what about clinical trials and stuff? Have we got access to good data? Because CAM tries to be very evidence-based. So we want to make sure that anything that we are, telling people about or suggesting. So give us some examples of some work that you've been doing that really is supporting the reliability of the product.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a combination of clinical work as well as research environment work. So for instance, one study was in anesthetized dogs with a tail clamp. That's kind of a very research-based environment, very controlled. It's a noxious stimuli.
Yeah.
And though that particular study gave us sensitivity and specificity 87 and 90%, which is decent. When we're working with actual pain patients, so having a veterinarian do an orthopedic exam, looking at every anatomical point, and was there pain detected by the veterinarian or no pain detected by the veterinarian, and comparing the PainTrace signal, our sensitivity and specificity in that study was greater than 90% for both. I forget the numbers off the top. Another study was for a pharmaceutical company where we were a control group, a meloxicam group, and the study drug for osteoarthritis. And there were 30 dogs in that particular study. And we looked at pre-NSAID or pre-study drug, and then 2 weeks after. And there were a series of orthopedic exams that were completed in the duration, as well as gait analysis. And that one was kind of interesting. The control group got better based upon the veterinarian as well as PainTrace. We were like, the control group did get better, yes. But OA is a bit like that. It's a good day, bad day sort of thing.
I'm glad you said that because people need to know that.
But the PainTrace was able to see that both the study drug and the meloxicam or Metacam, whichever one you refer to, the NSAID, was improving the pain state of the dogs with statistical significance over the 2-week duration. So despite having orthopedic examination not be able to completely show that statistically, the numbers showed it, but the statistical significance was missing for the ortho exam. The PainTrace had statistical significance and showed the improvement. Right. So that's good.
I should imagine.
Yeah, that's good.
I should imagine a lot of pharmaceutical companies and other companies are seeing this as quite exciting to collect data, because one of the problems with reading any paper is, well, how did they pick up on pain? And so followers, I read papers, not as much as I should do, sadly, at the moment, but and you'll be wanting to look up, say green lip muscle, and you've got 8 papers to look at, and they've got different numbers in each study. Some is controlled, some is not, some are randomly selected, some are not, different age groups, blah, blah, blah. And then you actually realize that they've all used different monitoring. So some are using canine brief pain inventory, some are using subjective assessment by the vet, some are using subjective assessment by the owner. And when you kind of bring it all together, you're like, you can't compare them. You can't lump them all together and go, yeah, we had 8 studies with 25 dogs in each, because they're 8 completely different studies monitored differently. So this is kind of like quite interesting in that a universal use.
Measurement. Yeah. It's funny that you bring this up because I was just reading a research paper. It was a a meta-analysis of, I think, 303 clinical studies that were utilizing a pain assessment, as an outcome measure. And within those 300 plus studies, there were over 30 different pain assessment tools that they utilized. And that was, just underscoring exactly what you're talking about, the variety of metrology or gait analysis or whatever that we use. There's a paper that looks at, I think it's Glasgow, the canine brief pain inventory, and Coast. And the level of agreement is an R of 0.5, meaning it's moderate. It's not really 100%. They actually, and I don't think all three agreed. The one just sort of, actually it was Helsinki. The one sort of just dropped off, and I went, where did it go? In the research paper, I was like, we're not talking about that one anymore. And then the other two, was like, they agree, but not totally,
No, and there's a very, very famous paper about, was it a student, a specialist orthopedic surgeon, and an orthopedic surgeon assessing lameness? They were all different.
Well, there's some variety. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
I mean,
So this is exciting because a universal tool would be, and this is what load and CBPI and gait analysis. This is what we are trying to do, followers. I'm getting a bit lost in the excitement of this. I've got a couple of questions.
Everybody's work is great, right? All of it is improving our ability to measure pain and improve quality of life. And that's the most important part. Like that is the most important part.
And then going back to what somebody once said to me, are you still interested in arthritis, Anna? Don't you think that's boring? And I'm like, have you got any idea? Any idea? 1 minute I'll be talking to you about this, biosignals. The next minute I'm talking to Stephen M. Fox about using radionuclides. You sit there going, how is arthritis boring? How dare they? Right, so let's do a couple of questions.
Okay.
Barbara has just done the most epic walk on behalf of Cam. I have to actually big this lady up massive. She is insane. She's been raising money for Cam by doing an epic hundreds and hundreds of kilometers walk. So thank you, Barbara. How do we match the color red with a specific activity if we're not able to monitor the dog for the entire time he's in the PainTrace is on him? So that verbal, he's now doing this, he's doing that. Is there any way?
Understood. So we didn't get into it. But that trace that I showed you where we had the peak, we also have a baseline that I didn't show you. And the baseline in that was a -6. So the more negative the values, the more chronic pain is present. So we would know off the top, if the value of the baseline is negative, that there's pain. There's something wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Without actually interacting or specifically annotating. It's the stairs. It's the, it's the shoulder. We would right off the top know that there was pain present.
Yeah.
And then that just becomes a deeper dive, right? We can't do everything. It's true, without having.
So that's really useful. That there's a background chronicity. But as you say, it's not like we haven't got video technology in it yet where you can match.
Well, I thought you were going to ask this question earlier, which is something about other signals. And we actually do have an activity tracker in the system. It's not turned on quite yet, but I was thinking about it and I was like, we would know if it was stairs because that's a particular movement, or in a cat, we would know if it was jumping or, not, because we would, the gyroscope and everything would tell you that level of information.
Nice. Because when I spoke to, name dropping massively here, Duncan Lascelles, he was like, the future, these accelerometers, the activity monitors is a really exciting area because again, it's going to be able to have an overall impression of the dog's quality of life, how much their energy they're expending doing which, what, and the other. So combining the two, wow, my God.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have that in there. It's just that we haven't launched that yet.
Okay. That's cool. This question, couldn't you anticipate pain that you then feel? So a positive spike wouldn't necessarily mean it's just anticipation.
Yeah.
Yes. So that goes back to what we were talking about before, in that pain is perception, and a previous painful experience can, like the guy in the sarong, his painful experience was as bad as being bitten by the snake, but it was merely a scratch. Does that show in the trace?
Right. Yeah. So in that instance, if you had an anticipatory response, which is usually what we see with the peak goes up first and then it goes down. If there's not something that is truly painful, you might see it go down, but you're not going to see a full response because there's not necessarily pain. Yeah. But to her point, if it's anticipatory and there's no pain, then you're just going to see it go up. If it's anticipatory and there is pain, or the perception of pain, because your brain plays a pretty big role.
Yeah.
That's a whole other topic that's deep dive. But yeah, she is correct. You would see the difference.
Okay. Got another question up here. And by the way, everybody, I'm just going to put it this way. Please tell us where you're listening from. Tell us who you are. It's been like 50, 60 people listening at any one point. So please say where you are, give us a bit more information about yourself. All of these Facebook Lives are done for free. We give up our time to do this for you guys. So get typing. Tell me where you're listening from. Just gives us that feeling of happiness. Right, back to this one.
Thank you. You're rocking it because you're the one that makes all this happen. So
thank you. That's really kind. Thank you for this wonderful webinar. I'm wondering, do you plan to search specific genes or metabolites related with pain with PCR? Because you mentioned about PCR, I guess you've probably moved on from that. You're pretty busy doing this, aren't you?
Yeah. So yeah, it's funny. Mass specs and PCR were my game in the 90s when we first released them. I worked for Applied Biosystems. It was the company that really was the first to launch those. I've moved. I personally am not focused on that. In the future, we may decide that we'd create a lab and do some additional work. Or we're happy just to work with some people that are interested in doing that.
Yeah.
We don't need
this is
enough. It's a lot.
Is it available in the UK now?
Almost. Almost. Yep.
No, exciting times. You have to let me know when it is, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that are going to bring it into their practice. They're going to work out how they work with it. They're going to build up hopefully some trust in it. I know that I definitely would be wanting to, sounds awful, but do the nail clipping. I'd want to be looking there going, what's happening? Okay, I'm just going to flex this elbow in a dog that I know has got elbow arthritis. Does it pick up on that? I'm going to just push into this trigger point and go, what happened? Did it? And I know that I would have to, even though there's evidence, I would need to really build up my trust within that product and learn how to use it to help me with my work. Yeah.
You're not alone. Hi, this is my dog. I'm laughing. When I laugh, he's like, "Oh, what's going on?" I'd like to be a part of that.
Luna still hasn't worked out that people are online. She comes in thinking that someone's been hiding in the corner for a while, and she's like, "Where are they?"
Yeah. Bye.
So somebody says, "How much is it?"
Right. So we license, and we have 1 year and 2 year licenses, depending on whether it's a small animal or a large animal. So we're talking mostly small animal. It's $400 a month, and that covers everything. And yeah, that's basically the
and how many animals could you use in a month? So, for example, I've just started using an online therapeutic exercise program where I can prescribe people the exercise, the frequency, the reps. I can check whether they're doing it. They get it by email, SMS, so, and that's a certain fee per month. But I know that I use it 50, 60 times a month. It's just negligible when you look at it like that. How many uses do you think you could get out of that?
We've talked about that. So, I mean, if you were at the bare minimum that, maybe you used it a couple of times a week, it would pay for itself. If the maximal single device could be utilized is twice per hour, I would say, depending on how you're doing it, right? Like what your goals are. Because some people, they will have their nurses or their veterinary technicians, come in, set everything up, do like a pre-walk exam, sit to stand, a little gait analysis. Then the veterinarian will do some extra work. And that you could do seriously twice an hour. If you did that, I mean, 2 times a day, your profits somewhere, depending on what you charge, or if you bundle it and somehow maybe $25,000 profit. If you're using it more maximally, it could be over a couple $100,000 profit.
Yeah. And as you say, if you got into the habit of using it so frequent, it was part of like using a capnograph. It's part of using pulse oximetry. That's just integrated.
Or you want to get a baseline, right? This is a new dog. Let's just get a baseline, and then we know that they're young. They may have a tendency towards dysplasia. Let's get the PainTrace. We'll just be able to have that just be an indicator. We do it once a year. We know if there's a change.
Very interesting. No, it's fascinating because I can just theoretically see many situations where it could improve communication. And I think that's something, to me, that's what CAM is about improving the communication, be it between the dog and the owner and their vet and their colleague and their allied professional. It is about trying to be able to have that universal language, which is what I think would unify us all to working in this multidisciplinary team that we talk about. Often language is lost, isn't it? And on that note, I'm looking at the time. You're not allowed to escape without the 10 top tips. And then we're going to, whilst we're doing our 10 top tips, guys, please say thank you. It's amazing that I've managed to pin her down because she is so ridiculously busy. And it's been an absolute pleasure. So I'm going to start with 10. That means you're 9. I'm 8, 7, 6, 5. That means number 1, which is the biggie, is you.
Well, it's a perfect lead in because, in thinking about this, my number 1 was go visit your veterinarian, right? Because just what you just said, which is you're a team, and establishing that relationship is super key. And if you can understand where your dog is now, and then you're much more able to quickly have an early prevention, an early detection, and a preventative care. That's super key. But if you have no relationship, it's a lot more difficult to detect if something's wrong.
Yeah, so definitely.
That's my number 1. Visit your vet, get a baseline.
Good job. Okay, so my number 2, so we're going to do it in reverse, is definitely my love, which is more rugs, less drugs. I just that is probably the biggest pillar behind CAM starting, was the fact that there are so many things around the home that you can do to make your dog more comfortable, have a better quality of life with this condition that don't cost the earth. And putting rugs on these slippery floors, I promise you guys, makes a massive difference. So that's my number 2. Number 3.
Okay. Nutrition. I think that plays such a huge role in both mental and physical health. The ability for your body to maintain its tissues, a lot of that comes from nutrition. So that's definitely one of mine.
No, I love it. I'm going reverse. I've never done it this way.
I'm sorry. I'm clueless is really what this comes down to.
Is a similar thing to the whole more rugs, less drugs, is keeping the brain busy. When you're fascinated with chronic pain like I am, and you're reading all of these lovely journals and articles and stuff from organizations that manage human chronic pain, keeping the mind busy, keeping positivity, keeping activity, it's so fundamentally important in the perception of pain. So take that learning and apply it to your dog. Get the interactive feeding toys, get the enrichment games, get the interaction with your dog, because that also has a massive impact on pain. Number 5.
I call that distraction therapy, what you just described. Yeah, totally. Okay, number 5. All right. A good bed, because sleep is really important. And quite frankly, sometimes if I PainTrace the pets at home, I watch them move from one place to the next. I can see when they're more comfortable than not. Yeah. And I also watch our cats and dogs vie for the best, what they think is the best bed or the bed they want for that moment. So
yeah. I think that is so important. It's totally applicable to us. My friend's staying and he's had a bad neck for a long time, and then he slept in a different bed and his neck feels a hell of a lot better, but he's gone back to his bed and it's bad again. And he's like, oh, that's to do with my bed. Number 6. I'm going to stick to the nice and simples and the cheap. Nail care, pad care, fluff between the toes. Again, this whole principle of non-slip, making sure that they've got good posture. Overgrown nails really, really can make things more treacherous, more uncomfortable, can affect their posture. And these are things that are very, very easy for you to improve. Number
I'm going to go with 7, but back to the nail trimming. It's just to add in. So we did this with bulls and the hoof trimming, and back to their alignment that was associated with the hoof. We watched them before and after, and we saw improvements in their bone based upon trimming the hoof. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. Okay, number 7. Yeah, we're going with 7. All right. Regular activity.
Yes.
Not necessarily like aggressive exercise, but regular activity, things that stretch and keep the tissues active. Make sure that you don't have atrophy of the muscle or the joint. Yeah,
I love that one. I am many years ago, I wrote an article about it was ridiculous. It was about the NHS and what a drain on the NHS it was, people not using the medications that they're prescribed. It's a huge drain on our National Health Service. And how wouldn't it be lovely if we prescribed lifestyle changes and exercises, and therefore we wouldn't have a loss of NHS funds because these are free interventions. It's not costing the NHS, but how people just probably wouldn't take them seriously, even though it's a prescription of exercise or a prescription of a new pair of shoes or a lifestyle change. But that is the same in dogs. If your vet turns around to you and says, look, I really would start trying to incorporate some targeted exercises that you can do on a daily basis with your dog, and some lateral bends, some dynamic stabilization, a little incline, a few weave pulls, that's really going to help with your dog's flexibility. Do it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It makes me think of people that take on yoga, the downward dog, I'm thinking. But, the reality is they're like, oh my gosh, my spine feels so much better. I'm so much more well aligned. Yeah. And it's not aggressive necessarily. It's active stretching. It's
common sense. Number 8, it's definitely going to be watching your dog and follow them around and look for hesitation. Look for them being a little bit concerned. Look at them thinking twice before doing something, and start thinking, why would they do that? Is that hard for them? Is that risky? Are they anticipating that they might stumble, trip, or fall? And you will learn so much that you can do at home, again, free of charge, that hopefully will make your dog more comfortable, less risk of progression because of accidents and injuries. Number 9.
Okay, we've talked about this one. I'm taking it. Weight loss.
I knew you were going to do that.
I think it's important. This sounds so bizarre, but years ago I was reading a Discover magazine. This was in my 20s, and they actually showed like the percentage of pressure that you have on your organs and the compression that you have on your joints by 10 pounds, 20 pounds, what the increase in weight was. And I just remember watching that and working in orthopedics for 10 years, being very conscious of it just from the biomechanics of things. And yeah, it's important for all of us, people and our pets. It makes a big difference.
Makes a massive difference. Yeah, good one. Okay, my one is, let's carry on talking about this disease. And I'm going to say this because I have no shame. I talk to everybody about it. I'm obviously boring. And I was walking across the beach the other day, and I bumped into a new friend in Bude. I haven't, I'm quite new here still, only been here 6 months. And we were talking, and I just dropped in that his older dog, have you ever considered that your dog might actually be sore and they're not just stiff? And that person got in touch with me a week later and went, do you know what? I went to the vet, and you're right. He's got a new lease of life. He's so much more comfortable, and I just didn't realize. So by having the bravery to just drop it in very kindly, very gently, that dog's life's been changed, and it's been changed for the best. And that owner's life has been changed for the best. So the more we talk about this disease, the more impact we will have globally. So please shout about it. Get a bandana. Get a CAM t-shirt, a CAM hoodie, bum bags. We have baseball caps. We have beanies. You can find it. Please start talking about this disease, because we will improve the lives of dogs. Thank you so much, Debs. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, it has been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for spending time with us. I'm really, really excited, and I want to see where this goes. So maybe what we could do is look at getting you back in 6 months to a year, and we can kind of update on progress.
I would love that. That would be fabulous. You and I will have a lot more to talk about. I know we'll be having some dialogue in between. So yeah,
perfect. And there's just one user, and somebody has just said, and I don't want them to feel lonely, and I'm not ignoring them. Somebody's really struggling with their dog, who's allergic to green lip mussels. I don't know your name, I'm afraid, love. But please join Holly's Army. It is our community group. We have the Cambassadors in there supervising it. There's about 12,000 dog owners now sharing stories, supporting each other. Pop in there, you'll get loads of support. Okay, guys, we're going to say bye for now, but thank you so much, Deb. And until next
all
time.
that you do, you're wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Have a great life.
See you later.
All right, take care.